Welcome back to AI ToolBox. Today we are diving into some pretty incredible updates from Runway ML, specifically their Gen 3 alpha release. From what I've seen, it looks like this is going to be a total game changer for creative workflows. Would you say so?
Absolutely. The thing is, Runway ML has always been pushing the boundaries of AI for creative tools. But with this Gen 3 alpha update, it's not just like a small step, feels like a massive leap forward.
I'm intrigued. For our listeners who maybe haven't heard of Runway ML, could you give us a quick explanation of what it is and why everyone's making such a fuss about this update?
You can think of Runway ML as this platform that's making these powerful AI tools available to creatives. They've been doing things like style transfer and video synthesis for a while now, but Gen 3 Alpha is bringing things to a whole other level, especially with text to video generation. So imagine typing in a description like a majestic lion walking through a futuristic cityscape, and the AI actually makes a video that brings that vision to life.
Hold on, so you're saying I could basically write a movie script
Yeah.
and have the AI generate like a first draft?
Well, not a whole movie yet, but the potential is definitely there. What's impressive is the amount of control and realism that Gen 3 Alpha offers. It's not just about creating random visuals, it's about giving creatives the power to really shape and refine those visuals so it matches their artistic vision.
That's amazing,
Yeah.
especially for someone like me who's always struggled with the technical stuff in video editing. But what about experienced video editors? What's in it for them?
Even for seasoned pros, Gen 3 Alpha opens up so many new doors. One of the biggest things they've been talking about is enhanced fine-tuning. Imagine having these AI models that have been trained on very specific data sets, even ones you've created yourself. It's almost like having an assistant editor who understands your style and knows how to create content that fits your aesthetic.
So it can not only create from scratch,
Yeah.
but also learn and adapt to very specific needs.
That's wild. Do you have to be like a coding expert to use it? Not at all. Runway ML has always focused on making things user-friendly. One of the articles you sent me talked about how they've simplified the process of fine-tuning models. So now it's accessible to almost anyone. And for more technical users, they've actually added even more advanced customization options.
That's great to hear, because I'm more of a point-and-click type of person when it comes to tech. Are there a lot of resources out there for people who are brand new to Gen 3 Alpha?
Absolutely. Runway ML has a super active online community. There are tons of tutorials, examples, and people sharing their work, and they're always adding new features and updates, so it's this constantly growing and evolving platform.
So it's like a one-stop shop for all things AI video creation with a built-in support system. That's fantastic.
Mm.
But I'm curious, beyond the technical advances, what are some of the real-world applications for Gen 3 Alpha? How are people actually using it?
It's making waves in so many industries. Filmmakers are using it to test out new visual styles and to make production more efficient. Like, imagine generating concept art or trying out special effects super quickly without spending hours on traditional methods.
Right. So it's like a rapid prototyping tool for filmmakers. What about in other fields? I bet advertisers are pretty excited about this too.
Oh, definitely. Creating dynamic and engaging video ads is so important in today's media landscape. Gen 3 Alpha could really change the game for advertisers. It lets them quickly create eye-catching content and try out different creative approaches really fast.
I can definitely see that. And what about social media? I'm sure people are using Gen 3 Alpha to make some really cool content for their feeds.
You got it. It's giving a whole new generation of creators the ability to make high-quality video content without needing expensive equipment or years of training.
It's really incredible how AI is changing the way we think about creativity in so many ways. But what about applications beyond entertainment and marketing?
One thing that really stood out to me in your research was the potential of Gen 3 Alpha in science visualization. So think about taking really complex data and turning it into visuals that are easy to understand. It could completely change the way we communicate scientific discoveries.
Wow, that's an awesome application I hadn't even considered. It's amazing to see how AI is connecting art and science in these unexpected ways. I have to say, I'm even more excited about the possibilities of Gen 3 Alpha after learning about all of this. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's take a step back and compare this technology to other AI video generators out there. What makes Runway ML different?
That's a great question. While there are other tools that can generate videos from text, Runway ML is going for a much more comprehensive approach. They're not just about creating individual video clips, they're building this whole ecosystem of tools that fit seamlessly into a creative workflow.
So it's not just like a one-trick pony. It's more like a full-fledged creative studio powered by AI.
Precisely. They have everything from pre-trained models to custom data sets to a huge library of creative tools.
That's really impressive. So if you had to sum it up, What would you say is the most important takeaway for our listeners who are just starting to explore Gen 3 Alpha?
I'd say it's not just a tool. It's sparking a whole new era of creative expression.
That's a great way to put it. And for anyone who wants to dive deeper into AI, make sure to check out our main show, AI for the People. We explore how AI is impacting our lives, from the practical to the philosophical. We'll be right back with more on Runway ML's Gen 3 Alpha after a quick message. Welcome back to AI ToolBox. Before the break, we were talking about how Runway ML's Gen 3 Alpha is impacting creative workflows.
You mentioned that Gen 3 Alpha is not just about making videos from scratch. It's also about having all these tools for changing existing footage using AI. Can you give us some examples of how that works?
Absolutely. One of the things that stood out in your research is this feature called the motion brush. It's this really intuitive tool that lets you control how certain things move within a video. It's almost like you're painting with motion. That sounds pretty cool. Can you give us an example? Say I have a video of a sunset. How could I use this motion brush to make it even better?
Imagine you want to make the clouds move faster to get that time-lapse look. Or maybe you want to add a bird flying across the screen following a specific path. The motion brush lets you control how each element in your video moves.
So instead of having to learn complicated animation software, I could do all of that right in Gen 3 Alpha.
Exactly. It makes adding dynamic elements to your videos so much easier. And it's not just about adding movement. You can create these subtle artistic effects that would take forever or be impossible to do with traditional editing.
This is all super impressive.
Yeah.
But are there any downsides or challenges to using Gen 3 Alpha? I mean, no technology is perfect, right?
You're right. There are always limitations. One thing to remember is AI is still fairly new, and even though Gen 3 Alpha has made huge progress with realism and control, the results can be a little unpredictable sometimes, especially when you're working with very specific or complex ideas.
So it's not like a magic wand where I can just wish for any video and it'll be perfect.
Not quite. It still needs the user to give creative input and direction. Think of it as more of a collaboration between you and the machine. You bring your vision and your creativity. And Gen 3 Alpha gives you the tools to make it a reality.
So it's not about replacing human creativity. It's about adding to it and expanding what's possible.
Exactly. Another challenge is that processing can be pretty demanding, especially for high-resolution video or big projects. You need a pretty good computer and a solid internet connection to really take advantage of Gen 3 Alpha.
So probably not something you can run on an old laptop.
Probably not. But Runway ML has different subscription options, so you can choose one that works for your needs and budget.
That's good to hear. I'm also interested in how accessible this technology is for people with disabilities. Has Runway ML done anything to make sure their design is inclusive?
That's a great question. And based on your research, it seems like Runway ML is putting in the effort to make things more accessible. One article mentioned that they've been adding things like keyboard navigation and screen reader compatibility so people with different disabilities can use the platform.
That's awesome. It's so important that as we develop these powerful AI tools, we make sure they can be used by everyone, no matter their abilities. Now let's talk about how Gen 3 Alpha has evolved. This isn't the first time Runway ML has tried AI-powered video creation.
Right. Not at all. They've been working on and improving these tools for a while now. Gen 3 Alpha is the result of years of research and innovation. It's a big jump forward in terms of what it can do and how easy it is to use.
What were some of the important steps that led to this release? Did your research mention any key moments in Runway ML's journey?
One of the articles you shared talked about their Gen 1 model from a few years ago. It was really groundbreaking at the time. It was the first time a lot of people heard about text-to-video generation. But it was still pretty limited in how realistic and controllable it was.
So Gen 1 was like a proof of concept. And now with Gen 3 Alpha, they've really refined and expanded on those initial ideas.
Exactly. Then came Gen 2, which had a lot of the features we see in Gen 3 Alpha, but in a more basic form. The real breakthrough with Gen 3 Alpha is how advanced the AI models are, the user interface, and the whole creative process.
It sounds like they've had a very intentional and step-by-step approach to developing this. Speaking of development, what's next for Runway ML? Did your research say anything about their future plans?
Some articles hinted at even more integration between the different creative tools on the platform. Imagine being able to move between generating video editing, sound design, and even 3D modeling, all in the same place.
Wow. That sounds like it would change the game for creative collaboration. It would be like having a virtual production studio right there on your computer.
Exactly. And they're still pushing the limits of what AI can do with video creation. One thing they're looking into is being able to create longer videos, maybe even full-length movies.
Now, that would be a real revolution. It would completely change how we think about filmmaking. But let's bring it back to the present and talk about how Gen 3 Alpha is already impacting the creative community. What are people saying about it?
The response has been super positive. People are excited about what this technology can do, and they're already using it to make some incredible things. There's a real buzz and energy in the online community.
I can imagine it's like this whole new world of possibilities has opened up. Are there any specific projects or creators that you thought were really interesting?
One article mentioned a filmmaker who used Gen 3 Alpha to make a short film, and the whole thing was generated by AI. It's not perfect, but it's a really cool example of what this technology can do.
That's amazing. It
Mhm.
just shows that even though it's still early, Gen 3 Alpha is already pushing the limits of what we thought was possible with AI-powered video creation. But before we move on to the next section, I'm curious about your personal take on all of this. As someone who's so involved in the world of AI, what do you think about the bigger implications of this technology?
It's both exciting and a little scary. On one hand, I'm blown away by how much creativity and innovation Gen 3 Alpha is unleashing. It's making tools that were once only available to a few people accessible to everyone. But on the other hand, I think we have to be careful about the potential problems, especially things like misinformation and people not trusting media anymore.
That's a really important point. It's easy to get swept up in the excitement of new technology,
Yeah.
but we also need to be aware of how it could be misused.
Exactly. It's a conversation we need to have as a society. As AI becomes more and more a part of our lives, we need to come up with guidelines for developing and using it responsibly.
Absolutely. And it seems like platforms like Runway ML are setting a good example by being open about their technology and actively talking about the ethical implications of AI.
I agree. They seem to be focused on using this technology for good and helping creators tell their stories in new and exciting ways.
Well said. And speaking of stories, I think it's time to move on to the next part of our deep dive, where we'll explore some of the more philosophical questions about Gen 3 Alpha and the future of AI-powered creativity. But before we do, we want to remind you that you can hear more insightful conversations about AI on our main show, AI for the People. We'll be right back after a quick message. Welcome back to AI ToolBox. We've spent this deep dive talking about all the cool things Runway ML's Gen 3 Alpha can do, but I kind of want to shift gears now and think about the bigger picture. It feels like this is a huge moment for creativity, don't you think?
Definitely. What's so interesting about Gen 3 Alpha is that it's not just about making videos, it's like it's changing how we think about being creative in the first place.
I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah.
What do you mean by changing how we think about being creative?
Well, think about it. Creative fields used to need specialized skills,
Hmm.
and you often needed expensive equipment. But Gen 3 Alpha and all these other AI tools are making those fields open to everyone in a way we've never seen before. Anyone with an internet connection and some creativity can make films, animations, tell visual stories. It's pretty amazing.
So it's not just about the tools. It's about who can use them and what they can do with them. Like everyone has a chance to be creative now.
Exactly. That's so exciting. It opens up all these possibilities for different people and perspectives to be seen and heard. But it also makes you wonder about what's going to happen to those creative industries. What happens when anyone can make high-quality videos? How does that change traditional filmmaking and animation?
Those are great questions.
Yeah.
And I bet it's not just about those industries themselves, but about how we all consume and interact with media.
Mhm.
Could AI speed up that trend towards content that's more personal and interactive?
I think it could. Imagine a world where you can interact with movies and video games as you're watching or playing, and change the story based on your choices. Or create custom educational content that changes depending on how you learn best. The possibilities are mind-blowing.
That's incredible, but also a little overwhelming,
Mhm.
to be honest. As someone who grew up with traditional storytelling, it's hard to imagine what that kind of change would mean for our culture. Do you ever feel that way?
It's definitely tough to picture a world so different from what we know, but I think it's a huge opportunity too. We have the chance to change what storytelling means in the age of AI, create new kinds of stories that are more engaging, more interactive, and really show the diversity of human experience.
I love that perspective.
Hmm.
It's not about getting rid of the old ways. It's about opening up to new possibilities. But while we're thinking about the future, I also want to know about Gen 3 Alpha right now.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's just starting out with this technology?
The most important thing is to have fun and experiment. Don't be afraid to try new things, break the rules, and see what happens. That's how you'll figure out what this technology can really do.
Great advice.
Yeah.
I think that applies to AI in general, actually.
It's always changing.
It's always changing. So the best way to learn is to jump in and start creating.
Exactly. And don't forget to talk to other creators and learn from what they're doing. The online community for AI tools like Gen 3 Alpha is so active and supportive.
It really is a special community. It feels like we're all on this journey together, trying to figure out this uncharted territory and use AI for good. And speaking of exploring, we want to encourage all of you to check out our main show, AI. For the people, we go deeper into how AI is impacting our lives, all the amazing things and the ethical considerations.
We're fascinated by how AI is changing our world, and we love sharing what we learn with our listeners.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Runway ML's Gen 3 Alpha, we want to leave you with one last thought. This is a time of huge change and amazing possibilities. Embrace the unknown, stay curious, and never stop creating. Thanks for joining us.